Happy Earth Day to one and all present here. Celebrating Earth Day has different meanings to different people. In a sense, its message is to take personal responsibility, to think globally, and act locally. Earth Day has become one of the most widely celebrated environmental events across the globe. It was originally celebrated at spring equinox around 21st March every year. But now, the United Nations has designated 22nd April as the International Mother Earth Day. Why do we need to celebrate Earth Day? Well, climate change concerns have seen tremendous momentum in the past few decades with increasing international cooperation. We are moving towards an increasingly high urban planet, and the risk is felt intensely in cities and city regions. Alongside the global response to climate change, there has been a global response that of the growing involvement of municipal governments and other actors in cities to deal with challenges posed by changing climate. Urban regions are therefore emerging as critical players in dealing with the impact of climate change. Goal 13 of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, or SDG 13, is designed to help shape national and regional policy. SDG 13 on climate change asks government to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. The goal recognizes the addressing and minimizing the risks posed by climate change is integral to successful implementations of the SDGs. Now, I call upon Tangmi to share about the various climate changes going on in the world right now as we speak.
Thank you, Sanvi. And climate scientist Carmelite father Adora Augustus Carroll once claimed, "What will save us is not technology or science. What will save us is the ethical transformation of our society." Consider what it would be to live in a world where half of the continents had sunk, part of their lives spent in water, and part of them are spent on land. A world with no ozone layer and temperature exceeding 50 degrees Celsius. Natural calamities are day to day occurrence in the world where extreme conditions exist because of the toxic chemicals present in the atmosphere. And breathing is nearly impossible. Well, I wouldn't be fascinated living in such world, but why am I urging you to envisage a world in which humans are unable to survive? Well, I'm asking you to envision this because this is our future. Even minor human activities, such as dumping vegetable garbage, can cause drastic chemical climate change. Perhaps in the future, the polar caps will only be the regions where humans can live. Nathaniel H. Elixton once said, "Nature bears long with those who wrong her. She is patient under abuse, but when abuse gone too far, when the time of reckoning finally comes, she is equally slow to be appeased or to turn away her wrath." True words have never been uttered. So, what precisely are these global climate shifts that are currently taking place? Let's see through a video. The natural world is undergoing changes, and we are completely reliant on the outside world. It gives food, water, oxygen, and much other things. It is the most valuable assets we possess, and we must safeguard it. Climate changes must be halted. And this is the reason that the United Nations established a goal. SDG 14, SDG 13 is a 4-point target that focuses on climate change, atmosphere, small island developing states, national strategies, and SDG integration.
Thank you, Tanvi. You are absolutely right. Imagine living in a world where half the continents are submerged, living partially in water and partially on land. A world without an ozone layer and temperature above 50 degrees Celsius. A world with extreme conditions where natural calamities are day to day activities performed by nature, where it is almost impossible to breathe due to natural gases present in the atmosphere. Well, I ask you to imagine this because this is what the future holds for us. Human activities, even as small as throwing vegetable waste, can lead to extreme climate changes. These climate changes need to stop. And this is why the UN came up with a goal. Like Tanvi already mentioned, SDG 13 is a goal that focuses on four major points: climate change, atmosphere, small island developing states, and natural strategies, and SDG integration. I would now like to invite Avni to share information and facts about the atmosphere of our Mother Earth.
Air pollution and its impact. When it comes to air pollution, our own cherished capital, Delhi, is the perfect example. According to a WHO analysis of 1650 world cities, the air quality in Delhi, India's capital region, is the worst of any large city in the world. It also has an impact on the areas surrounding Delhi. Air pollution is projected to kill around 2 million people in India each year, making it the country's fifth leading cause of death. According to WHO, India has the highest death rate from chronic respiratory disorders, including asthma, in the world. In Delhi, poor air quality permanently harms the lungs of 2.2 million children, which is basically half of the city's population. Causes of air pollution: lack of political priority, lack of acting, monitoring, and reaction by authorities, heavy metal-rich firecrackers, agricultural stubble burning in nearby districts during harvest season, and in the end, motor vehicles, which are one of the causes of poor air quality. This has been significantly improved upon by allowing every vehicle in Delhi to be CNG and therefore reducing pollution. The consequences of poor air quality. 2.2 million children in Delhi have suffered irreversible lung damage. Pollution can lower children's immune system and increase the risk of cancer, epilepsy, diabetes, and even in adult onset diseases like multiple sclerosis. For adults, poor air quality is a cause of reduced lung capacity, headaches, sore throats, coughs, fatigue, lung cancer, and early death. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the particulate matter that had not been controlled well, the aerosols had served as virus carriers or hosts in the rapid spread of the pandemic. Smog in Delhi is one of the major and ongoing effects of the pollution in Delhi, and it causes low visibility and results in accidents across the city. But Delhi is not the only one. There are cities all around the world peaking in their levels of pollution. Cities like Lahore, Sofia, Zagreb, Belgrade, Chengdu, Skopje, Krakow, etc. This arises the question of the main causes. Well, they can be divided into four parts: area, natural, mobile, and stationary. Agricultural area burning stubble pollute the environment. Along with this, even areas in a city or industrial areas as wood burning furnaces contaminate the environment. Natural causes include the wind-blown detritus from wildfires and volcanic explosions that are spread all around by the wind. Mobile causes include cars, buses, planes, trucks, trains, and all modes of transportation that release n number of contaminating agents and pollutants into the atmosphere. Finally, we have stationary causes. These include power plants, oil refineries, industrial facilities, and factories that burn fossil fuels or refine them or extract them, which leads to their surrounding areas being the victims of the lethal components they add to the air. Here you can see a depiction of what I just discussed. Now my suggested solutions over here. First, biogas. It is a cheap, clean, and renewable source of energy that can be especially useful in agricultural areas. Biogas plants use organic waste to produce energy and leave behind a residue that can be utilized as manure. Planting trees around factories. It may sound like a simple solution, but it is effective. Planting trees right in the vicinity of industries will cause the carbon dioxide produced there to be used by the trees, resulting in a cleaner atmosphere. Furthermore, the trees act as a barrier and prevent the nearby areas from being polluted. Installing solar panels and increasing the use of hydroelectricity, wind power will reduce the burning of coal as a source of electricity, thus reducing pollution. Along with this, there should also be separate lanes for bicycles and other less polluting vehicles to encourage their use and reduce accidents. In the end, employing the use of fans more than ACs. ACs are major sources of chlorofluorocarbons, which are CFCs, that lead to global warming, and using fans more reduces CFC emission. Now, global warming is one of the most dire consequences of air pollution, and it is blighting the ozone layer. The most affected areas are the continents of Australia and Antarctica. The ozone layer in the stratosphere absorbs a portion of the sun's radiation, preventing it from reaching the planet's surface. Most notably, it absorbs the UVB portion of the spectrum. Now, UVB is a type of ultraviolet light that comes from the sun and sun labs and has a number of negative consequences. Australia is a one-of-a-kind country. It's the only spot on the planet where the ozone hole is larger than Antarctica. Its absence means that more high-energy radiation reaches the Earth, potentially harming living cells. The environmental impact, on the other hand, is life-threatening. Climate change, skin cancer, and forest fires are all on the rise due to this. So the question that comes to mind is, how do we stop this? To such a crisis, there is only one solution: reduce pollution to the point that the ozone layer can repair. During the lockdown, for example, transportation and production were curtailed to the point where the ozone began to heal itself due to the lack of rising pollutants. Thank you.
Thank you, Avneet. One point that I would like to bring into light again is the hole in the ozone layer. Like Avneet said, the most brutal consequence of global warming is the hole in the ozone layer. The hole lets ultraviolet radiations enter the Earth. These radiations can harm not only human beings, but other living organisms as well. And like Avneet said, the only way to deal with the ozone hole is to reduce pollution. We now have Palak Tanna, who will tell us about small island developing states.
For centuries, small island developing states have drawn benefits from biodiversity in the form of food supply, clean water, reduced beach erosion, soil and sand formation, and protection from storm surges. SDG 13 promotes mechanisms for raising capacity for effective climate change, related planning and management in least developed countries and small island developing states, including focusing on women, youth, local, and marginalized communities. The following presentation is mainly concerned with the small island developing states. What SIDS are? Small island developing states include some of the world's smallest and most remote states in the world. They are a diverse group of countries differing in terms of population size and density, geographical spread, and relative developmental progress. Yet, they share common challenges and vulnerabilities that prevent them from investing in resilient development and seriously hinder their growth prospects. These include high exposure to natural disasters and climate change, high exposure to global economic shocks, small or unstable domestic revenues, and limited borrowing opportunities. Now let us look at the list of SIDS. There are a total of 38 UN members and 20 non-UN members or the associate members of the regional commissions like Bahrain, Maldives, Haiti, Cuba, British Virgin Islands, the US Virgin Islands, among others. Let us look at the characteristics of SIDS. SIDS are generally the most vulnerable countries in the world. They're ecologically fragile and economically vulnerable. The adverse effects of climate change seriously compromise the future of SIDS, who suffer from common environmental problems due to their smallness, remoteness, and their exposure to natural hazards. However, the international cooperation can improve the negative impacts of climate change by promoting adaptation policies. The financing for SIDS. With small and remote economies exposed to economic and natural shocks, SIDS are highly vulnerable developing states. They suffer from low economic diversification, high dependence on remittances, debt stress situations, as well as the volatility of private income flows. Small island developing states make up 2/3 of the countries that suffer the highest relative losses, between 1% to 9% of their GDP each year from natural disasters and acutely vulnerable to the increasing impacts of climate change. Now let us go through some of the major events that have taken place for the sustainable development of small island states. The first event is the Barbados Plan of Action of 1994. The Barbados Plan of Action was adopted during the global conference held at Barbados in 1994, and it defines the 14 following priorities to ensure the sustainable development of states, like the climate change and sea level rise, the natural and environmental disasters, management of waste, coastal and marine, freshwater, energy, tourism and biodiversity resources, national institutions and administrative capacity, regional institutions and technical cooperation, transport and communication, science and technology, and the human resource development. The second is the Samoa Pathway. The third International Conference on Small Island Developing States was held from the 1st to the 4th September 2014 in Apia, Samoa. The overarching theme of the conference was the sustainable development of small island developing states through genuine and durable partnership. The SIDS accelerated modalities of action, or the Samoa Pathway, adopted at the conference, addresses priority areas for SIDS and calls for urgent actions and support for SIDS efforts to achieve their sustainable development. The UNESCO SIDS Action Plan was adopted in 2016, and it embraces the Samoa Pathway and contributes to its implementation on education, capacity building, technology, water and sanitation, biodiversity, climate change, sustainable energy, disaster risk reduction, oceans and seas, and the sustainable tourism. SIDS are resilient. They are building forward better to strengthen the protection of vulnerable groups and create greener and bluer economies. For example, for small island states like Singapore, climate change is a clear and present danger. No country acting alone can move the needle. By working together, the international community can make a substantial impact. One of the many steps that Singapore is taking is to plant 1 million trees, expanding the use of solar energy, thereby reducing the waste into landfills. Singapore also looks forward to the next round of negotiations on the Treaty on Marine Biodiversity beyond natural jurisdiction and to the second Ocean Conference in Lisbon, Portugal. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. That was very well spoken. Like Paula already mentioned, SDG 13 promotes mechanisms for raising capacity for effective climate change related planning and management in the least developed countries and small island developing states, including focusing on women, youth, and local marginalized communities. I would now like to call upon Arpana to enlighten us about the National Development Sustainable Strategies, or the NSDS.
Thank you, Sanvi. The words preservation and conservation have often been used interchangeably by many of us, but these two words can be differentiated by understanding their true meaning. Conservation is the act of protecting the environment through the responsible usage of natural resources, whereas preservation is the act of protecting the environment from hazardous human activities. These two actions, undertaken by the Interlinked and Integrated Goals, or the SDGs, of the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development, are of crucial importance in ensuring that the purpose of the new agenda is realized. The National Development Sustainable Strategies, or the NSDS, prepared under the guidance of the International Forum in Accra, Ghana in the year 2001, can be defined as a coordinated, participatory, and iterative process of thoughts and actions to achieve economic, environmental, and social objectives in a balanced and integrated manner. Every country needs to determine for itself how to best approach the preparation and implementation of its national sustainable development strategy, depending upon the prevailing political, historical, cultural, and ecological circumstances. Today, there's an increased interest in the national development planning, and for many countries, their plan or strategy, even if not labeled as NSDS, is the chief means for incorporating the 2030 Agenda and its 17 SDGs into the national policy framework. The voluntary reviews, or the VNRs, and other sources provide examples of approaches taken by countries to integrate the 2030 Agenda into national plans and strategies. Countries are also integrating regional and continental agendas into their plans, for instance, the 2063 Agenda of the African Union. The SDGs are also being incorporated in plans and review processes at the subnational level, as evidenced by the voluntary local reviews. A few examples of the international NSDS collaborating centers include the Thailand Environment Institute, or the TEI, the National Economic and Social Development Board, or the NESDB of Thailand, the National Council on External Affairs, or the NCEA of Myanmar, and the Yunnan Environment Protection Bureau, or the YEPB. The main objectives of these strategies adhere to some of the main 17 goals of the SDGs. The first objective adheres to Goal 3, to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. The second objective adheres to Goal 11, to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. The third adheres to Goal 13, to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. The fourth to Goal 15, to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forest, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. The fifth to Goal 16, to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, to provide access to justice for all, and to build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And the sixth to Goal 17, to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. The objective that we will be focusing upon today is Goal 13. As clarified by Palak, the increasing population of our world is in turn leading to an increasing demand of basic necessities, such as the provision of consumer items, including our staple diets, areas of accommodation, and constructed infrastructure, which are obtained through the exploitation of natural resources from our environments. A significant increase in these human activities have exacerbated global warming by the emission of greenhouse gases, biosphere pollution, soil degradation through deforestation, depletion of natural resources, generation of unsustainable waste and its improper disposal, loss of biodiversity through urban sprawls, ozone layer acidification, and public health issues as a result of the following adversities. The focusing targets of the NSDS and Goal 13 as a whole can be summarized in three major pointers. The first one is to strengthen the resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disaster in all countries. This goal was created after the global compilation and analysis of the average number of deaths, missing persons, and directly affected persons attributed to disasters per 1 lakh population, the number of countries that adopt and implement national disaster risk reduction strategies in line with the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, and the proportion of local governments that adopt and implement local disaster risk reduction strategies in line with national disaster risk reduction strategies. The second one is to integrate climate change measures into national policies, strategies, and planning. This goal was created after the global compilation and analysis of the number of countries with nationally determined contributions, long-term strategies, national adaptation plans, and adaptation communications, as reported by the Secretariat of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the total greenhouse gas emissions per year. And the third one is to improve education, awareness raising, and human and institutional capacity on climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning. This goal, as well, was created after the global compilation and analysis of the number of countries that have communicated the strengthening of institutional, systemic, and individual capacity building to implement adaptation, mitigation, and technology transfer and development actions. This must be extended to which global citizenship education and education for sustainable development are mainstreamed in national education policies, curricula, teacher education, and student assessment. These topics have been a matter of rising concern for 2 decades, and the highly influential climate change is increasing the number of preservation challenges at an alarming rate. Some individual practices for the achievement of the sustainable goals of goal number 13 are quite uncomplicated and effective. They can be listed down to 4 suggestions. Number 1 is the use of environmental friendly fuels. The majority of total number of greenhouse gas emissions into atmosphere are caused by the emissions of carbon dioxide in huge amounts due to the growing use of non-renewable resources of energy such as diesel and petrol. The use of eco-friendly, smokeless, and cleaner fuels such as CNG and LPG, along with the use of electrical modes of transports such as electric rickshaws in the state of Uttar Pradesh of India, is encouraged. Number 2 is the renewable resources. Successful attempts of harnessing the energy of the inexhaustible resources in abundance in India is due to its average of 300 sunny days per annum, and regional climatic differences by employing different technologies can prove to be quite advantageous, as it not only solves the problem of economic growth but also of sustainable economic development. Number 3 is recycling. The system of segregated waste disposal on the basis of degradability is also a very impactful contributor, as biodegradable industrial and household wastes can be utilized in the field of agriculture as manure, and non-biodegradable waste such as plastic can be reused and recycled. And number 4 is the use of input efficient technology. More input efficient methods and techniques in the industrial sector must be devised so that there is an increase in production per unit of input. This efficient utilization of natural resources leads to lesser exploitation of natural resources. We are fortunate enough to live in a beautiful, diverse, nurturing, and awe-inspiring planet. The blue planet, our planet Earth, is a blessing, which is why our children and all future generations deserve this blessing as well. We have to put in our efforts towards giving back everything we were provided with by Mother Nature. This is a matter of our survival and our very existence. So let's try our best to contribute to the achievement of these sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Arpana. To summarize what Arpana said in an extremely informative talk, the National Development Sustainable Strategies, or the NSDS, ensures the implementation of the main objectives or targets of the SDGs and the unification of the member states of the United Nations by aiding them in their rapid growth in economic, social, and environmental aspects. We would now like to show you a solution video for the climatic changes that are happening and harming our Mother Earth. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our presentation for Earth Day. Thank you.